We're officially starting, guys. Welcome to second masterclass of 2024. I'm Kelly. This is Chris. We are with Planetar Inc. iGUIDE. You guys know this because you signed up. I'm in client success and product support. Christopher is our product marketing manager for those of you who have not seen or heard of us before, which would be crazy unless you're a brand new customer. And then in that case, we'll forgive you. We have a little bit of housekeeping to go through before we get into our topic. We'll probably chat at you for, I don't know, 30 minutes or so ish. Put your questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, not the chat, the Q&A. Put the questions in the Q&A, my bad. I will be monitoring the Q&A, might be answering some through typing, and then I'll be bugging Chris to answer stuff live as it's relevant. And yeah, chat is disabled. I know we go through this every time and we always forget to change it. It's some configuration in the back end. We can't do it live. First things first. So we are here to talk about how to get yourself ready for 2024 and specifically the spring season. But before we get into that topic, housekeeping items, make sure you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. You follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You're in our Facebook group. We do have a forum that has a ton of great content there. Also, make sure you please, I'm gonna like harass your lives about this for the rest of the year, promise. Bookmark Help Center. We worked on this really, really hard last year. It's where all of our answers live. I highly encourage you to bookmark it and look for the answer before you create a support ticket, unless it's something really specific, because we have so many answers there. If you're just getting started, we have everything you need to get started there too. It's help.youriguide.com. I will put that in so you can all see it. What were your housekeeping items?
So we did a webinar a couple of weeks ago about a price change. That's coming. You don't really see the effect. It began January 1st, but you won't really see the effect until you get your bill. So the differences are that the price of standard iGUIDEs went up a little bit. Radix got significantly cheaper. I'm not going to go into what these things are if you don't know, if you're new, but
no, go back to the masterclass recording. It's all there. We walk you through it.
Or you can just go to the website. It'll tell you all this stuff too. And then iGUIDE photos became free. Like that, these are good things. So those price changes don't take, but they've taken effect already, but you won't really see them until
early February once you get your January invoice. Yeah.
So just FYI on that.
Yes.
The other thing we were going to mention was that we do have something really exciting coming up. So it's like a teaser. I'm trying a teaser out. We don't do this very often. I'm not very good at it. I'm sorry, but we have something really exciting coming.
Yes, very exciting.
It's really exciting. So pay attention to our communications, I guess is what you do, is wait patiently.
Tune in, keep an eye on our email communications. It is something we're very excited about. We've been working very hard, not me specifically, but Chris and our product team and devs and so many people. So we're really, really excited. So stay tuned. Yeah. That's all we're going to say. That's the teaser. We're teasing you. It's the point, right?
Planetar and iGUIDE have a good track record of providing lots of feature updates that are intended to benefit you. And
that's the point. Yeah.
And so there's something coming that is one of those things. So anyway, it's awesome.
We're not gonna,
but it's the first teaser I've ever done, so I think that was pretty good. I did okay there. We did okay.
I think we've officially made up. I think this officially makes up for our super exciting announcement last January, February.
No. We didn't. We won't talk for anything. We're not talking about that. Okay, so just to put this webinar in context, it's about just our experience and some suggestions that we have about getting ready for the busy season. So if you're in residential real estate, that's obviously coming up pretty soon. And so there's some things that you should start preparing for and doing for now. Interestingly, though, there's going to be another webinar February 7th. That's really more about marketing. So this webinar is really more about just really simple things you can do to get you started. So this is a good lead up to that.
Very complimentary.
But they have similar titles. So if you see the other one, it's not the same one.
It's not. No. This one, well, if we're just going to break it down, this one, we're not going to talk about any marketing tactics. And that one will have a lot of marketing tactics on your online presence and how to get customers and stuff like that. So when you see that, because there will be communications going out, do sign up for that, because it is going to be different content. Chris will also be there again. I will not, but it will be our VP of marketing there. So that's going to be really, really great content. This is kind of a precursor to that. And that's kind
a good way to put it.
Diving into more details with the marketing in that webinar, but very similar titles.
Yeah. So that, I mean, we're going to talk for about, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, or an hour. I don't know.
Whatever it is.
And then we'll take your questions. So if you ask any ones about marketing materials, we're just going to duck them because they're for another webinar.
Yes, exactly.
We don't even read them. I'll just pretend they're not even there.
Yeah, I'm going to just say, look out. So let me cue you up for the first point. So as Chris was phrasing up this whole webinar, I believe most people that are on this webinar today, either you own a business or you work for somebody that owns a business. But in most cases, you own your own business. And as a business owner, as many business owners do towards the end of their year, whenever their fiscal year is, lots of people that's December, but during your down season, whenever that might be for you, is a great time for you to look at what has happened over the last 12 months. How well did you do? How well did you do year over year? How are your customers growing or not? So, and then one of the big questions is, well, how can you do better this year, right? So first point is check out your workflow and look for some efficiencies. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, Christopher?
Yeah. So what typically happens is that basically, you're really hungry for business at this time of year because it's cold and there's not a lot of listings, and you're sick of being in your house. Maybe, I don't know, but
it's dark. There's no sunlight.
Things. It switches from like boring to busy so quickly. Yes. I think for most people, I don't know if that's necessarily most people, but I feel like that it is. That sometimes you take for granted some of the stuff that you have from your previous year in terms of like workflow. So there's all these things that go into your workflow. You've got your booking and scheduling systems. You've got your computers. You've got your cameras. Obviously, you've got any other technology you have, and drones or whatever. And so it's a good idea from my experience, basically to crack that stuff out and give a think to whether you have the right tool for the job. So
how do you determine if you have the right tool?
Great question. It's a bit of a mix, right? It's like maybe that whatever it was that you used maybe previous year was suboptimal. Maybe you think you can grow your business by investing in some sort of technology. Maybe you just want to spend some money and have some new toys. I don't know. That's a perfectly viable reason to buy stuff, I think.
I know you think that.
So, okay, I'll give you a couple examples. So, you have different parts of your workflow that require tools. We'll start tools. It's easier. So I'm going to start with computer. So a lot of people don't think of it like this, but every day you presumably sit down at your computer and you do some stuff. Now, how much you do depends wildly on the volume that you're doing that day, and then also the third-party services that you're using. Like if you have editors and you're working with other people who are doing the lion's share of the editing, and maybe your computer time is all about communication. But it's funny, having met so many photographers, I'm always surprised at how little effort they put into their computer systems. Often it's like a total afterthought, and that really slows you down. Like it sucks. It can turn something that's already a slog. You have 5 shoots, you got to edit all the photos yourself. It's just torture because everything is slower. Yeah. We can drill down even deeper. Like each thing you do in your post-processing workflow has a time associated with it. So that's everything. That's like copying the files from your SD card or CF card to your computer. That's taking it and putting it in the whatever storage thing you're using. And that's, loading it into whatever post-processing software you're using, let's say Camera Raw, and converting it all from, whatever 14-bit to 8-bit JPEGs. Like each one of these steps requires some computer horsepower. And it, like, as you scale it up in terms of volume, it's significant. It seems like a small thing, but some of the like really some of the biggest gains I've gotten before video were just by upgrading my computer. Once you start doing video, your computer, like the render times are sometimes ridiculous. It sort of depends on what you're doing. So the computer just is like a no-brainer. But yeah, so that's first hot tip in terms of workflows. Don't ignore your post-processing. If there's tools you need, like a computer upgrade. Sounds like I'm just convincing them to spend money.
I know.
I'm giving you carte blanche. You want to go out and shop?
Chris said yes.
I saw it on a webinar. Chris said it.
So as a side note to that point where we're talking about workflow, if you haven't ever laid out your workflow, now's a good time to figure out where you're spending all your time. It doesn't necessarily mean you do need new tech, but and maybe you don't have the funds to do that right now, and it's something you think about in the future. However, knowing where you should be spending your money is really important based on knowing how much time you're spending and knowing each of the activities that you're spending time in. And now's the time to do it when you're not super busy, because you just don't have the mental or emotional bandwidth to sit down and go, what are all the things that I'm doing? Because you're in autopilot. I would write it out. If you have never done it, it's a great exercise. And sometimes it's a great exercise to do on an annual basis, because you may have added new things in that you didn't know. Maybe you've changed stuff. This is, annual review kind of process is really important. New year, new you, guys.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's funny. I found there was a huge advantage to sort of writing down all the things that you do and trying to figure out where you can find some improvements. Growing your business can be done in lots of different ways, but just having being able to fit more shoots in a day, or being able to fit more work into a work day, is really valuable. And when I was self-employed, I lined everything up like a big nerd. I made a big chart, and it's like my two biggest things were post-processing time and travel. I spent a lot of time traveling. So post-processing, that's a lot of like computer stuff. But what I found was that the workflow that I was using was not great, so I had to change sort of what I was doing in order to make it slightly better. And what I ended up doing was switching to a wider lens. So what I found was that I was shooting with I don't remember, 17 or 18 millimeter lens. I forget what it was. It was a zoom lens, but I switched to a 14 millimeter lens, and I found that when I was on site, I was just backing up less. So just to try to fit everything in. So that meant my shoot times were lower because I just wasn't working as hard to get the type of photos that I was going for. And then I found in post-processing, I was spending less time trying to like recompose everything like perfectly, like so things weren't cut off or whatever. So just changing the lens was enough to save me a considerable amount of time. So that was kind of cool.
You mentioned travel.
Yeah, travel's a funny one. So travel, there's two things for travel. One is that obviously you have a vehicle. So, if you have the wrong vehicle, that that sucks. Buying a car or buying any vehicle is terrible. I'm not telling you to go and buy a car, but if you want to, again, just tell them I said you should. The other thing, so you obviously want the right vehicle for the job. I used to drive a giant SUV. And when I switched to a tiny car, oh my God, I saved so much money. And it's easier to park, and it was just so much better. So I saved a lot of time there. But yeah, buying a car is an awful experience. So, I mean, for me anyway. So that's something you want to do early rather than in the thick of the busiest part of the season. I would definitely say that the other part of that is related to scheduling. So there are a lot of different ways to approach the scheduling problem. There are software services that offer scheduling. I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm not wrong, HD Photo Hub, I think, as an example, has a scheduling component, I believe.
I'm not sure about that.
Maybe they're an example anyway. There is this weird downtime between shoots that no one really talks about, where you have to like do stuff, and it can be a significant source of wasted time. So that's something that you can tackle, but obviously better planning your shoots, if that's possible. Got our first question. We don't have to answer it yet, though.
I was going to answer it before we
go
move
ahead.
on to the next one. So Tim is asking, what do you use? Do you use Mac or IBM? And what software are you finding good in addition to Stitch and manage the iGUIDE portal? Are you using a contact management tool other than Excel? So let's answer the first one first.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter, Mac or PC, it's irrelevant. I use PC, but it doesn't make any difference really. In addition to Stitch. So obviously I'm not shooting anymore, so all the software I used to use is probably archaic and ancient, like QuickBooks. And people use QuickBooks. I don't know, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, QuickBooks, there you go. I never had any fancy scheduling software. I had to do everything manually. The stuff that exists now is incredible.
Yeah.
But this, in terms of software, for me, it's very simple. It's obviously like Stitch and iGUIDE stuff, but I was just Adobe Suite. I only use Adobe products like Photoshop, Premiere, and whatever else is associated with their subscription plan.
So Tim's second question is, do you have your customers book your schedule through your website, or do you have them call you? So that's actually a really great question.
That's a good question. Okay, I'll address it first, and then you back me up. Okay, so here's the ideal, right? What you want is you want a system that allows for your customers to be able to reach you quickly and effectively, so that you can capture that business, And so that's like the goal. And there are lots of different ways to achieve that, and some of them are more practical than others. And it depends on like a bunch of things. This all sounds very vague, but I'll explain. So if you have the time and the wherewithal to take the phone calls while you're working, okay, yeah, you can do that, but that doesn't last very long. I mean, it's always going to be there. People are always going to call you, so it is what it is. But usually people do that at first, and then they realize that that's not scalable.
So sustainable, for sure.
Because you need to work, right? Like you can't be taking phone calls all day. So, and then you miss calls and people get upset. It's a whole thing.
Well, then you could miss a whole appointment, right? Or miss booking it.
So then you have the option of choosing to, for example, find a software solution that maybe will make your life easier. So that could mean just you entering the information in terms of scheduling. It could be a form of like an online order form that involves scheduling. It could be limiting people contacting you through email or some other source. You could, and then you can keep going. You can hire someone just to do all this stuff, and you can give them software tools. Most people, I think today, most people try software tools first.
Yes.
And they see where that gets them. And then you kind of scale your actual business
but
resources later.
So two things. Number one, now is the time to assess different options for scheduling, because you hypothetically should be in a slower period of time. Most real estate photographers are right now. December, January is typically quite slow. So now's the time to look into options. How much is it? Is this a good option? Are you ready for it yet? Etc. So now's a good time. If you're interested in knowing what other people are using, because we don't do that right now, so we can't tell you what we're doing because we're not doing any of it, go to our Facebook group or our forum. I put the link to the forum in our chat. Both of those places have a community of iGUIDE users, iGUIDE real estate photographers, and they're quite friendly and eager to share, which means if you ask, hey, what are you guys using for scheduling? They're going to tell you. So if you want, some advice from people who are actually doing this, that's where you should go. Do you want to address this question before we move on to their next point?
Yeah, I'm going to read it aloud.
Okay.
Tacey asks, when will iGUIDE be available for integration with HT Photo Hub? Integrations are a huge time saver. They totally are. You're right. Thank you, Tacey. And so, yes, it is no secret. We are working on this right now. I can't speak to the when. I have no idea, but it's as quickly as possible kind of thing. So it is what it is. I mean, if we had that, we would immediately tell you, because that's obviously would be great news. So yep, it's coming. It's not an if, it's a when, but I don't know when, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, next point. So as part of your business review and looking at your workflow and your efficiencies, another really big piece is your revenue piece, which is your customers and your business. So at the end of the year, beginning of the year, during your downtime, we know that it's a really good idea to always kind of look at what happened last year. How many customers did I have? How many new customers? How many old customers? Did I lose customers? So it's a good time of year to check in with yourself and your business and see where everything's going. You have the time to do the research. And this leads us into our next 2 points, which is to see, what have you been doing? Has it worked? Why has it worked? Do you know why people have left? What can you do to get them back? Can you offer promotions? Do you know what people want? This is all going to circle around, because if you know that people want drone, or you know that people want more iGuides, or they want more of X video, that's your tools, leads back into your tools question. So maybe you need to invest in tools to continue to invest back in your business and to grow your business. But then what else should we do, Chris, as it relates to customers?
Which one are we at?
I did this one.
Well, you did, but you did 4 before 2.
I know. I skipped it. I thought it was in the wrong. I thought it was in the wrong spot.
It's okay. We'll press on. So
we'll press on.
This is going to sound probably really simple and overly simple, but from my experience, it's always been a good idea before any season to reach out before the season and remind people that you still exist.
That sounds so straightforward, but it's
so
true.
Easy. It's a good idea to reach out proactively, I guess I should say, and that's just a really how you do it is totally up to you, but you've got existing customers, and there's and the reason I bring it up is, and this will come up in some other points, is there's this habit, I guess this probably exists in lots of industries, but of kind of being very reactive and just kind of waiting for orders to come in, and then you don't know there's a problem until they don't. And maybe a lot of people had to deal with this last year, so there's no point in me saying this, but I found this to be the case, that you have to basically like reach out early. So what is it, January what? So basically reach 25. Out now. It's like you just touch base with people and then you're top of mind, and start conversations. So you put the work in before necessarily the actual shoots are maybe there. The volume's not up in the actual home sales, but you're starting to build those connections ahead of time. Proactive communication, reach out to your customers early.
Yeah. And this is also related to, have you lost any customers? Because it's a possibility that you can gain some feedback there. You might be able to figure out why they may have left. They may not have had any business last year. You might have assumed, oh, this person started using somebody else, or, they stopped using X and they went with Y. They may have just left the business entirely. So it's a really good way, reaching out proactively to all of the customers that you've had, or in some way, shape, or form, is a really great way of capturing feedback about what happened last year and how, and then knowing what happened last year can help you guide some decisions for 2024 and beyond, because who knows?
Absolutely. You want me to go into detail on the business one?
Yes.
So, okay, there's some cool stuff you can do. You might already know this. This might be super simple, but it's when I figured this out, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So if you, depending on how you keep your records, I mean, mine were very simple. They were just in a spreadsheet, but if you can take all of your customers and you can spend a couple hours and you can line them all up, and you can give like a quantity number or how many shoots or products that they've ordered from you, depending on what you offer. And then you can start organizing that data into simple, like things like a pie chart. Like, it's super easy. You'll start to see things that are really interesting. So you'll start to see that you have a few customers who are like a big deal. And you'll already kind of know that, but sometimes you don't know how big a deal they are until you really look at the data. Because when you see it in a pie chart, you're like, whoa, they're like 30% of my business. And so those are the people you need to reach out to a lot. And then you'll find also that you have people that you didn't retain, but you'll forget about them, right? Like you put a lot of effort in, you convince them that something was good. You know, maybe you spent money on I don't know, a trade show or something, and you hooked this agent in and you told them all about what you do, and they hired you once, and then you never saw them again. But you kind of forget about these people sometimes. You get busy. So then this reminds you, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy only ordered one. And on the, you know, it's a pie chart, right? So you'll see these big pieces of the pie and you'll see all these little tiny pieces. And then it kind of helps you think about, or I found it helped me think about my customers, like in the way that I'm treating these people differently. You know, I've put a lot of effort into all of these people to get them to buy something from me and hire me for something. So I need to maintain these relationships with these big people because they're a big deal. But then I need to go check, like, what happened with all of these onesies and twosies who, you know, maybe that's all they had. You know, maybe that they didn't have a lot of listings. That's okay. Or maybe you know, they tried me out and they didn't get it, you know, whatever it was I was offering. Or maybe they made the wrong decision in a package. Or maybe the deliverable was too complicated because they have some kind of skill gap and it didn't work for them. So I'll give you an example from iGUIDE because it's complicated sometimes. So, you know, people would often order tours and they would kind of get the MLS part, like take the link, share it. Okay, it's a virtual tour, but then they would just like miss everything else. So they didn't see like the value, right? So they wouldn't order more. So you'd look at the chart and say, okay, I only ordered one, but they seem to really like it. So what's going on here? And then you'd contact them and you'd have this conversation. You say, oh, okay, I see. Well, how did it go with the, oh yeah, you liked it. Did you know it could do this? And often they're like, no, I had no idea. You could measure on that thing. I'm like, yeah, that's what you ordered. Like, you didn't know that. So that used to happen a lot, probably still does. So that just lining everybody up and thinking about how much they've ordered is really, I found that very useful. You know, and then it kind of helps you. I mean, every market is different. Wherever you live is going to be different than, you know, where I am. So maybe certain things are important in certain areas and or trendy. Certain things are important in others. So it's really important to get feedback from a lot of those people as well for why you didn't, you know, retain them. So was there a question?
I answered it. Yeah.
Oh, you're good. You're fast.
All right. I think we're moving on to our last point
so
before we can
right there. Just be done.
Recap.
No, I'm kidding. We have one point. So this used to happen to me a lot. I would get very excited about integrating some sort of new like tool or something. You know, I'd buy a new video doodad, like a slider or something. And I think, I'm going to do slider videos or whatever. And I wouldn't really fully prepare or understand what I was doing before sort of I got busy. And then I wouldn't really be fully able to capitalize on that because I wouldn't be comfortable with it. And so I would kind of consciously or unconsciously kind of push it to the side before in favor of other things that I was comfortable with. So for example, shooting stills. Yeah, I got that. That's very easy. Shooting iGUIDE's very good at that. But video, I always really struggled with that because there's so many different types of video and it's complicated. So my hot tip, the last one, is that you give yourself enough time to master those things and you like start working on it now, which again probably seems really obvious, like prepare. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that and I don't think I'm alone here, I think a lot of people do this. I think they wait until they think, you know what, I'll figure it out when I get there. I used to do this. It's a very cavalier way of doing it, and you can do that if you want, but
yeah.
it's my suggestion is that it's better if you don't, because I found that to be the case. So to give you an example, if you think that let's pick something real dry, floor plans and square footage are not like your strong thing, but you're like, people like this stuff, I really want to sell more of these, really dial that in. This would be the time where you really get to understand it, you know. So someone said they're new, right? So if you're new to iGUIDE, like don't wait until someone calls you with an order or you get your first gig to learn how to use the iGUIDE. Take this thing out, and this works for anything: drones, video rigs, you know, DJI, Ronin, whatever,
lens, whatever,
new lenses, anything. go and use it a lot. And that way, when you go to your first shoot, you look like a pro, and also you're like comfortable and you can speak to the benefits, because when you're, at that shoot, you don't want to be like figuring it out. You look foolish, and you can't really use that opportunity to sell yourself and get another job. The best time, the best opportunity that you have when you're doing like in field work is when you're there with like your potential or your customer, and you get to speak with them like one-on-one, and they get to see what you do like that. So you put on a little show, you like impress them. So if you're
fumbling,
like not fully comfortable,
if you don't look confident or secure in what you're doing, it makes a difference.
And then
it all makes a difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's huge. And there's one little, and then also like one little thing to add on to that is that there's always stuff that you don't know. And when you think, oh, I'm gonna learn it at the time, like, yeah, it might be very straightforward, but there's always little challenges that come up. I think drones are a good example. They're quirky. There's rules. Like, it's not as simple as just chuck it in the air and go. So yeah, that's the takeaway from that, is that you should prepare by basically practicing.
Yes.
Like training, like put on a headband.
Practice makes perfect.
Lift weights.
I think a lot of, I mean, I've had a lot of calls with real estate photographers over the years asking me, how do you grow your business? And in almost every case, the answer is, do you feel confident talking about what you offer? Do you know what you offer? Do you know what the benefits are? Do you know what the benefits are for your customer? And do you know how to have that conversation confidently? Because as Chris mentioned, your best opportunity is when you're in person. And obviously, if you don't have any customers yet, you might not have the opportunity to do that in person. But you need to be able to have that conversation in whatever medium you're using to try and get new customers. But once you have a customer, real estate agents do talk, they do pass stuff around. Word of mouth is still a very useful tactic in the business world, and your impression matters on site. So just driving that, know what you're doing, know what you've got, know what you have to offer, and don't delay. Do it now.
Is that a response to that?
No.
What's your take on commercial spaces and insurance?
My take? Well, the insurance piece is kind of, I see that as very separate from real estate.
It is.
Not that commercial isn't separate from real estate, it is, but it's a different business to go after. I don't know many people that easily or successfully delve between real estate and insurance, but you can delve between real estate and commercial, for example. It just depends on your contacts and how much hustle. Commercial shoots and commercial spaces and commercial customers require a longer sales cycle. Usually that conversation is longer because there's more money involved. Obviously, the question was if there's more money for commercial and insurance. Insurance, not so much. It's going to be probably close to real estate, and commercial. Yeah, there's more money involved for sure. What's your take?
Well, commercial is complicated.
It's very complicated.
It's just commercial spaces alone. Do you mean like commercial leasing and sales, like
commercial
like
real
office
estate
spaces? Do you mean facility
options.
Management type commercial stuff? Do you mean renovations or remodeling like commercial spaces for like architecture or like construction rather? Yeah, there's a lot there. Things outside of residential real estate are there's always stuff to do. If you can find someone who has a need for your particular product, and you understand it well enough to know that you're giving them something that they can use, then yeah. So I'll give you an example. So because that's too vague. Construction progress monitoring. So I I don't know what area you're in, so I don't know if you would want to chase this business, but if it's there for you, you could. So you might have a builder who you know through someone who would like to try that out. Construction progress monitoring is, and you go out, you document the site, you send them the data, they look at it remotely, and then they make decisions about the site and the progress based on the iGUIDE that you provided, type of thing. But that's way different than residential real estate sales. So you'd have to really understand their needs and then kind of figure it out based on what you get from the iGUIDE deliverables. So it's a complicated question.
It is, yeah, and not something, I mean, Angie, I think you're looking for some general advice on how to get started. And I think there's some, we have a ton of resources on our website and on our help center about the different industries. So I encourage you to go there and look at the different offerings that we have. Definitely, not an easy question to answer about how to get into each of the industries in this masterclass. So Tacey says, not a question, but I have an iGUIDE of my own home. And that meant that after the flood, when I did the radix as well, I was able to get 100% of my remodeling covered.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome.
It's funny. Presumably you all have cameras. You should all go shoot an iGUIDE of your home if you haven't done it. It is so useful when you're buying furniture. Oh my God, it makes life so much easier. I've probably told this story about 1,000 times, but I scanned all around my house. And then I got a fence quote because I was able to draw with the measure tool from my house out and then around a tree and another fence. And I saved like thousands of dollars. I just screen captured the drawing on I did a radix, but I screen captured it with the measurement lines. And I just sent it to people and it has the little measurements. And I just said, how much would this cost to build a fence where the red line is? And yeah, it was really easy because they could give me a quote and then they could come out and kind of firm that up on site. And I didn't have to have like 10 contractors out to see it.
Yeah.
So it's big time savers. Nice.
Tacey says, also an upsell idea. I sell a license for the iGUIDE for the buying agent to give as a closing gift to the buyer.
You can totally do that. Because it is useful to my earlier point as well. That's great. We used to, this was like 2014. We used to have USB drives.
Yes, I still have one at home.
I have one too. I think it's it's gotta be like 24 megabytes or something.
Yeah.
But we used to put the tour on it and then you would give it to the homeowner as like a physical present.
It was like a closing gift. So it's like, this is a memory of the home that you spent time in. And also we talked about branding, the fact that branding lives on that iGUIDE, on the offline download iGUIDE, which means the agent's information is there forever. One of the NAR reports came out and basically said people aren't typically buying houses in less than every 5 or 10 years, and they forget who their realtor is.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a way to keep yourself top of mind. Same like we said about remind people you still exist. It's a way to keep yourself top of mind. People don't always remember things. Yes, it was a stressful situation, maybe buying or selling your home, but once it's done, you're not necessarily thinking about it again. So you want to keep yourself top of mind as an agent, but also as a real estate photographer. But understanding agent pain points allows you to speak to their pain points and show them how what you have to offer provide solution to their pain points, which is just kind of all part of that sales and marketing conversation. If you have any other questions, please get them in now before we officially close out, because we have, do you want to do a quick recap? 5 points. What were the 5 points we covered today?
I mean, I have notes, so I know what they are already.
I know.
Go ahead. It's a test. I'm going to pass.
It's a test.
So quick summary, check your workflow, think critically about everything that you do. If you have the time, write it all down, and then think about how much time you're spending on each thing and see if you can lessen that amount of time or make your life easier. It's not necessarily about fitting more work in. Maybe you want a longer lunch. Just saying.
Maybe that's important for your day.
Number 2, reach out to people so they know you exist early. Don't wait. It's better that way. Look at your business critically from last year if you have the data. We didn't talk about data tools exactly. I mentioned Excel and QuickBooks, but ideally you would have data from last year. You could go look at all your clients. So if you can look at that data, do it. And if you don't have that data, then maybe set that up for this year.
Let's do that for this year. If you don't have that, I mean, at minimum, you can just look at the invoices that we've sent you if you have nothing else, which hopefully you do. But we have invoicing there and you can cross-reference who the agents were for each of those iGUIDEs. So,
and then think about customer retention, if you've lost people and why, and what you can do to bring them back. And then lastly, if you're going to incorporate anything new, get really comfortable with it early so that you can just, maximize its potential during this season rather than kind of, struggle with it and then, not really fully get to grips with it until like another season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have one question in the chat. We did it. How do you explain cost of services to clients? How did you determine and set billing options for your services? How do you get them to pay online, check, Visa, etc.?
You mean like explain the cost? I think I get where you're coming from, but I would have to imagine. Well, okay, fair enough. So, if you're explaining it, then you're being questioned about it.
I took that to mean how do you have pricing conversations? If somebody's asking you about what things cost, how do you explain the cost? I don't know if that had to do with the iGUIDE specifically or photography, simple, single option, or many add-ons.
Well, we could have a whole webinar on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of complicated. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'll give you what I used to tell people when I was a trainer, and that's that there is no one like right answer. No. It needs to be a fit for your area, and every area is a little bit different. It's weird. It also needs to maximize the potential in your area. So for example, video is really big in your area. Maybe you bundle that into everything. Maybe it's a no-go without that. That'd be a bit weird, but whatever. Yeah. So often what we suggest is that you consider one thing and then you basically go look at your competition. So the one thing is that still photos are an absolute 100% requirement. Must. You can't not have those. So, okay, accept that. And then think about what pairs well with those. So we always suggest iGUIDE because like, obviously we work here, but iGUIDE and still photos are like the perfect combo. You have something that's can be just incredibly beautiful. This is your photos, not well. The iGUIDE can be beautiful too. I shouldn't say that, but the photos they can be amazing. You can put enough, you can put an enormous amount of energy into them. You can really, develop a craft and like, you can really wow people with that. But then you can back that up with something like an iGUIDE where you're getting like really useful, valuable information like total square footage and floor plans and this 3D tour that gives people room dimensions, save a ton of time. Agents don't have to measure. Yeah. So you've got the best of both worlds. You have something that like is completely ubiquitous and easy to share photos. They look good. They really get people's attention. And then you have something to really, as a firm foundation, you have all this extra property data. The iGUIDE, that's super valuable for the buying and selling process. So with that in mind, it's a good idea to just go basically, scrape the internet for everyone in your local area and look at what they're doing, and not like rip it off, but like you're going to have to be competitive anyway. Yeah. So, you're going to take the best ideas and cherry pick them, and you're going to turn it into your packages and pricing will probably be like similar. Yeah. Or similar with a bonus. Or, there's no race to you can do a race to the bottom if you really want to try to undercut them, but I'm not recommending that. But there is it's going to be comparable. So you go look at the competition and then you try to make something that works, bearing in mind that you need a good combo of stuff if you can get it. Yeah. Actually, just to add on that, the reason I'm saying that is that if an agent has to call you for something and then they need to call someone else, that's a hassle. You don't want to hassle. You want to give them enough. You don't have to do everything, but you want to give them enough that they can really confidently list a property and have a lot to work with. There's always going to be something that you're not going to do. So they're going to ask you like, oh, do you do drone videos or whatever? And you can say yes or no, or do whatever you want. Did I answer that question? Yeah. What was the question? It had to do with pricing. How do you discuss pricing with your customer? Yeah, wasn't there a follow-up? Was there a second part? I know. He said thank you. Oh, was that it? Thank you's good. Second part. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Yeah, I think if we're going to talk about square footage, if we're specifically in terms of iGUIDE, again, look at what your competition is doing, but make sure that you keep in mind the square footage, because we charge a billable square footage as opposed to the reportable square footage. It is different. So you want to make sure that you're keeping those
two things in mind when you're going to bill your customer before you are receiving an invoice, for example. Oh, the other piece of that was how do
payment
you
processing.
receive
Yeah,
payment?
that's what it was. Yeah, so there's lots of different ways, lots of different services. The concept that I like the best, that I never did, but I like wish I could have, is having everything behind a paywall. And so there are lots of services that do that.
Yes.
So
You have to pay
investigate,
to
ask
receive
around.
it.
But like, yeah, it just means that your client has to pay, and then it like basically triggers or unlocks the deliverable. So whoever does that is, I mean, I love the idea of that, because then you're never going to have to worry about chasing someone down for a payment, which is icky. So yeah.
Yes, it is. And it can be time consuming as well, speaking of how to spend your time. So if that's something that you spent a lot of time doing last year, is trying to get people to pay their bills, look into baby solutions for this year, you know, communicating your payment terms this year proactively, whatever that means. I'm not sure, but something to just consider for sure. I just put those links in there. Okay. Gotcha. We have no more questions. No, we're all done. I think we're going to wrap it up now.
So it's weekend.
Weekend. I was like, what? I got all excited. I was like, it's only Thursday. We appreciate you being here. As always, we will put this recording on our goigUIDE.com/masterclass site, which is where all of our masterclasses live. We have that webinar coming up on February 7th that's going to delve into the marketing topics, so don't forget about that. I included the help center and the forum in the chat, so make sure you bookmark those and keep those close by. You can answer all the questions you probably need to if before you get to support and or crowdsource through forum Facebook group. Anything else I missed?
That's it. We're done.
Awesome. High five. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Happy Thursday.